How's it going, guys? It's me, TheTechyGamer, here with another build guide. This build guide falls under the $800 budget, which makes this build a lot harder to make than previous builds. So, alongside me in this build will be my old pal, The Paradox. Anyways, make sure to check him out at his channel below as he does Skyrim and other awesome gaming videos. So how this is going to work is we will take turns discussing the parts that we picked and why we picked them. Also, this build is built for 1080, although it can be played at 1440p, no problem. Also, in case you aren't aware of what this build and other builds are aimed for, it's trying to squeeze the most out of performance while still maintaining the budget, as well as trying to make it as much upgradable as for the future and overclockable. Keep in mind that this build may vary in price, which means that it may appear over or under the budget at certain times of the year. And since Christmas is around the corner, it will most likely drop, which means if you're getting your PC on this budget, you should definitely think about getting it for Christmas. So, without further ado, let's do this. So, to start out with the CPU, I went with the AMD FX 6300 6-core processor. Now for this, I wasn't looking for the best CPU, considering that the graphics card is going to be driving most or all of your games. But at the same time, you will need a CPU that won't bottleneck, and for this, the cheapest one that wouldn't bottleneck with the GPU, but still with good enough performance, was the AMD FX 6300. It has a clock of 3.5 GHz, has a power usage of 95 watts, includes a CPU cooler, has data width of 64-bit, has 3 times 64 kilobytes of instruction, 16 kilobytes data, 2 megabytes of L2 cache, 8 megabyte of L3 cache, 32 nm lithography, does not have hyperthreading, and does not have integrated graphics. So that's unfortunate, but you can expect some pretty good performance out of this CPU, considering that it's 3.5 GHz on 6 cores.
Next we have the CPU cooler, and obviously we went for the Master Hyper 212 Evo 82.9 CFM sleeve bearing CPU cooler. This is basically a really good CPU for the money, and it's really good for decent overclocking, and it does keep your CPU pretty cool, so it's not going to get too hot if you do overclock it. You're looking at like light to medium overclocking, not very violent overclocking, just for this CPU cooler.
For the motherboard, I had to go with the Asus M5 A99FX Pro R2 ATX AM3 Plus motherboard. For the motherboard, we were looking for two things: upgradability and overclockability. This board is great for both. The overclocking on this thing is an absolute beast. It has a lot of good features as well. As for specs, we have the AM3 Plus CPU socket, obviously. It uses the AMD 9090FX chipset, has 4 240-pin DIMM, supports DDR3 1066, 1333, 1600, 1866, and 2133 memory. Supports a max of 32 gigabytes of memory, which is more than enough for gaming. Unfortunately, does not support RAID, but then again, this is a low-end system, and I mean, I hate to break it, but it's not a lot of people really use it as much, so that's not really much of a problem. It does not have onboard video, but does support Crossfire and SLI, has 7 SATA 6 gigabytes a second, 1 eSATA 3 gigabytes a second, has onboard Ethernet, in fact it has one 10/100/1000 megabytes per second, and has onboard USB 3.0 headers. So overall, this motherboard has a lot of upgradability for the future if you want to do SLI, or if you switch to an AMD card and you want to Crossfire, you can. As well as has plenty of upgrade for RAM, considering it has 4 slots and has a max of 32 gigabytes. But I think best of all, it's the fact that overclocking is really easy with this board.
As for the memory, we went with the snazzy G-Skill Ripjaws series, 8 gig dual channel DDR3, 600 memory at only $33. Talk about a great deal for RAM. It is important to remember that when purchasing RAM for gaming purposes, it does hurt if you went for the cheapest RAM, but make sure it's a trusted company. As specs, it is 240 pin DIMM or DIM, a case or CAS of 9, contains a heat spreader, has no ECC, and is not registered. Not much else to say about RAM either, as it is not very surprising.
As for the SSD, I couldn't resist the Kingston SSD Now V300 series 120GB 2.5-inch SSD for only $50. It's a perfect starting SSD with plenty of space. However, I only recommend having a game or two on there and having your OS on the SSD as a boot drive. If it was more than that amount, I would put several games, but really this would only be good if you used it as a boot drive. And that's where the hard drive comes in.
And you're right about that. For the hard drive, we went with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB, 3.5. It's a 7200 RPM internal hard drive. Again, it's not very surprising. It is 1 TB of epic storage.
Anyways, for the video card, this might actually surprise you. We went with the EVGA GeForce GTX 960 4GB Super SC ACX 2.0 Plus video card instead of the GTX 970. This brings back up the topic of bottlenecking. We found that since the 970 is such a high-end card and the CPU that we originally threw at it was not, a lot of people are saying that it would bottleneck the 970, which isn't a very good thing. So we had to bump down the graphics card to a 960 and boost the CPU up to a FX 6300 instead of the FX 4300. I suppose you could roll with the 970, however you would really need to upgrade the CPU a bit to unlock that full performance of the 970 in most games.
As for the case, we went with the Crosshair 200R ATX mid-tower case. It has plenty of space with 300mm with drive cages and 430 without, which is more than enough for some of the biggest graphics cards out there. It also has good cable management and supports front panel USB 3.0 ports, which is great for our motherboard. It has 3 internal 5.25 bays, 4 internal 3.5 bays, and 42.5 bays. It also has excellent airflow also.
Next, we have the optical drive, which I actually found a very cheap option, and that's the Leaton IHDS 11804 DVD/CD drive for only $13. For optical drives, it isn't really too much important for what you pick, so long as you install the OS and it actually works.
Finally, and most unsurprisingly, we have the OS, which is Windows 10. Wow, that's a shocker. Like for the 3rd time or something. But it's nothing much to say about this. It is just a nice software to use, I guess.
So anyways guys, that was our best $800 gaming PC build. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video as much as we did making it. Now before you say some shilly remark, yes, we did enjoy making this. So we hope that you enjoyed it as well. So yeah. Anyways guys, that's about it for today. Leave a comment below if you think there is a better part for this video, and if we get enough comments or we feel like it's important, we will make a second revamped video that will show your guys' ideas. And yes, that includes a shout out. And also, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed or thought this video was good. But anyways guys, I will see you all next time. Peace.